Welcome to Rivetting Conversations, the only recap show for the best audio drama on the interwebs, Rex Rivetter, Private Eye. I am your host, Joe Fejeran. Welcome once again. This is a really great episode. We weren't kidding when we said it was going to get darker in Season 2, folks. I hope that you were just as shocked and dismayed as I am. We just listened to it together as a group. Before we get into it, I want to introduce our guest that we have this evening. We have the voice of Hephaestus in this episode, Mr. James Michael McCullock.
Hello.
And we also have the voice of Father Lozado, Mr. Edgar Diaz-Gutierrez.
Hello.
So, gentlemen, what did you think? We had been sitting here for a little bit before we started the episode, and then when Mike walked in the door, I was like, my eye was turned up, and I started to put my conspiracy theorist hat on. Because you can't just have people show up new in the last episode unless it's for a reason. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Initial reactions to the episodes?
Dang.
Yes, pretty much.
So, when I recorded, Greg gave me my parts. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. I knew nothing of what was gonna happen. I just knew Father Lozado's lines and things happening around it, and then after that happened with me, all the rest of the ending, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Hey, I mean, after everything that happened this episode of Rex, there you go.
Yeah. So basically you're not coming back unless it's like a force ghost in Rex. The way like Jenny and Abe Breslow came back.
Hey, you said Jenny was gonna come back.
I did say that. I was like, Jenny is coming back. I still think
that's a ghost.
I still think she's actually going to in body come back. But I don't know, Mike. What did you think? What was your initial reaction?
Well, I mean, you at least had more of the story,
right?
Edgar. Where for me, all I knew is same story. I only saw what I did. I knew I picked him up on the side of the road after talking to an imaginary boy and a donkey, and then I dropped him off, and that was all I knew about the episode. So I've been seriously coming along episode by episode without even knowing what the main story was.
And you're like, you gave him the weapon. Like, you gave him the murder weapon. The weapon to which he exacts his revenge. By the way, if you haven't listened to the final episode of The Case of Pete and Repeat, what are you doing listening to this episode? This is a recap show for that episode. So if you haven't listened to it and you're worried about spoilers, too bad! We are going to go into it anyway. Yeah. So, this was a really, really great episode. As I think our listeners know, the episodes are longer. They're longer than the first season, which I appreciate because, on one hand, I have a long commute, so I can get through an entire episode without having to split it up on one leg of my journey. On the other hand, I think there's definitely a lot more that can happen. There's a lot more development. You can have characters like Hephaestus come in and play this little part that just adds a lot of texture and scenery and more to who Rex is as a person, because we got to see three very different sides of Rex in this episode. We had to see like true Rex in the box with the Force Ghost Jenny and Abe, and that we got to see him as kind of his like snarky, quirky self, but still has a lot of charm with Hephaestus. And then we got to see him as like, the savior, the tragic savior leader when he gets to Father Lozado. But it was a really, really well done episode from those points of view. I mean, not to jump right to like conspiracies or my theories about it, but I have a hard time believing that Rex actually killed him. I don't know, maybe. I just feel like we're gonna get in the next episode, the speakers were on and we heard everything in the outside and we took him away or something like that. But it just seems, I'm getting looks from the peanut gallery. It's just, I have a hard time believing that he he had that cold-blooded murder in him, but at the same time, so much has been established to show us that he is at rock bottom, that it's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Well, you hit the nail on the head in that this episode alone, I mean, this whole season, when we first see him after all that time, he's just wasted.
Yeah.
And then he slowly made the climb back to be a part of this case, and then in this episode alone, we've seen him in, and one of the things that was really kind of cool about the scene that I got to do with Rex is it's one of the only times in the entire series where Rex has a moment of somebody just being kind to him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, and he even says, he's like, it's been a long time since somebody's just been kind to me. And then going from that into this situation with the Padre, I think that I don't know. It was good. It was a very dense episode. It was actually been a very dense opener for this season. And there's a lot that I've had to listen to a few of the episodes a couple times just to really kind of take it all in. It's been a lot. It's been fun. This was a really, really good case.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is only the first case.
I know.
It's only the first case this season. So there's a few things I want to talk about, and then before we talk about going into each of your parts of the episode specifically,
sure.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to mention was I have been trying to busting my ass to see why is this called the case of Pete and Repeat, and I'm just like, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like. And then he does it, or he
the joke.
The thing comes up and it's the joke, and with the imaginary, I'm gonna assume it's imaginary Mexican boy in his burrow. I'm seeing claymation. I'm seeing claymation little drummer boy and like a donkey. That's how I see it in my head. This is all happening in claymation.
That's funny.
If anyone out there has the talent to do this entire scene in claymation with claymation Rex Rivetter, please do that and send it to us. If you want to see that happen, donate on Patreon. We'll try to make it happen for you. But so I'm just saying that I'm like, UMF. I constantly swear at Greg when we're listening to these episodes. I'm like, oh, it was what Hitchcock called a MacGuffin. It has nothing to do with the episode at all, and has everything to do with just this moment of hallucination. Mm. And I thought, in the what is now going to be called the lost episode of Rivetting Conversations, I have this whole thing about how I mentioned it now, a whole thing about how we discovered that Philip John's character, his name is Pete, and I'm like, oh, Pete, and then they gloss over it so quickly, oh, maybe he's a repeat or something about. What does this have to do? His name's Pete. This is a Pete and repeat. I thought there was some connection there. Mm-hmm. And then we had the character that the veterinarian that's there, and Rex is having to repeat himself constantly.
Doc Brown.
Yes. He's having to repeat himself constantly to him. And it's just, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's a connection. I'm trying to get there in my head. I'm like, hey, his name's Pete. He was repeating. Maybe the doctor has something to do with it. I don't know what's going on. It just seemed like such a gratuitous scene to establish that he had been hit over the head really hard. So, and I guess that's what it was. It was just it was meant to throw me off. I think Greg just sits there in his dark little hole and is trying to figure out what it is that, what can I do to make Joe crazy that's just going to lead him in a completely different direction.
The red herrings.
Yes, what red herrings can I throw out there for him? But so I wanted to mention that right off the bat because, in case anyone didn't catch it, Pete and Repeat doesn't have anything really to do with the death of Dolores. It has everything to do with Rex being lost in the claymation desert. So there's that. So let's I want to talk about Hephaestus first of all. So Hephaestus obviously he said gave weapon to the gods, and then giving a weapon to Rex, and I'm like, okay, so we're making we're doing that. You're doing that thing. We're actually maybe Hephaestus was also a figment of Rex's imagination. At this point, I'm starting to question what is real and what is not. I mean, it's like we're watching Memento or something. And but how what was your take on the character, and how did you approach it and get involved?
Well, when I got the script, I read it. I didn't have the house to myself, so it took me 2 days before I actually could read it out loud. Mm-hmm. But I read it and read it and read it and read it. And, like they say, if you play a villain or you play a good guy, you can't judge a character. You just have to be a person. And so I just played what I had. And when I finally did get the opportunity to do it out loud, when I had the place to myself, that was just the voice that came out. And I kept thinking, like, I need to come up with an alternative in case they don't like this. I need to give them something else they can hear. And everything else I did felt so forced and just didn't feel genuine. And this voice, this like Pepperidge Farm remembers kind of voice, just kept it fit. It seemed right. It seemed right. Yeah. And there's a lot of research that comes with the character that I received from Rhiannon about like where he lives, his background a little bit, and just all these little things, and then you kind of piece it all together and come up with this human that interacts with this character for whatever. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I definitely feel like he like walked around with like Werther's original candies in his pocket, just ready to give it to somebody. The fact that he was like, I was gonna give this gun to my daughter, like, that's pretty rad. I'm like, oh, okay, it's like, I'm gonna give you a gun. It's 1950, whatever. I'm gonna give you a gun. It was definitely like, you could see the stark difference between the two men. Like, when we were watching or listening to the episode, I guessed two other actors that, before I was told that it was you, and I'm like, oh, well, like, it was a completely new voice to me.
Cool.
So it was really, really great. Excellent painting of that, because you can totally see it in your head who he is and what he was driving and all this stuff. And I'd be curious to see if maybe we see Heph again in the future, hopefully.
Well, one of the things that Greg said when we first kind of were rehearsing it, he was pointing out something about Heph's character, and he's like, here's Rex on the side of the freeway, covered in blood and dirt and looking like hell, warmed over, and everybody else would just be like, nope, driving by, and Heph comes up like, hey, you need a ride? And that just sort of sums up the kind of person that he is. And it was just fun to play a good guy.
Yeah.
It was just that's always nice to just play someone who's just a good person.
Yeah.
And
which is not something that we're getting we're getting really in this, at least in this first case. I thought that was just really, I was completely thrown off by it by the presence of it, and I really hope that if somewhere down the line we can see Heph again, that would be awesome, because I would love to know more about that particular character. And if you want to know more about that particular character too, make sure you write DS Entertain, Downstairs Entertainment. Make sure that when you're donating to Patreon, you're saying this is specifically to have Heph come back. Not so much with Father Lozado.
It's okay.
Sorry. Which, by the way, completely threw me off. Like, your entire storyline completely threw me off, because I originally thought that the indiscretions were going on between the priest and Dolores, and then like it was very like the final scene of like a Robert Rodriguez film with like the priest with the baseball bat, pretty much Father Negan over here, like going to beat someone to death. And it was awesome. I was like, oh my god, like he beat up his sister's abuser when he was 15, and then ran to join the priesthood to escape conviction. I was like, oh, nothing more badass than that. I don't know, how did you, so you appear in the very first episode, and you're kind of sprinkled throughout this particular case. Mm-hmm. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about what your process was like when you were recording, and then subsequently, I don't know if you've had any trouble keeping the secrets hashtag keep the secrets for this case?
Well, I'll be completely honest. I actually got the Father Lozado script. I got it like way back in November, but it was unfinished. Mm-hmm. So I literally just had like the first 2 episodes worth of Father Lozado. So I didn't even know what the ending or anything was going to be like. So then by just reading about there's some mystery and something's going on, and I'm just trying to really like help Rex and just be like, hey man, come, you look like you're trashed.
Yeah,
come to the church.
Yeah,
I'll help you.
It's all are okay. Welcome.
Yeah. Like I did some sins too. There was some stuff with me, and I played baseball. Don't worry about it. I had a life too. Just come to the church. And so then that's kind of how I created Father Lozado. It was just kind of like this caring guy. Maybe he had a secret. Maybe he had some stuff happen in the past. But I mean, who doesn't, As he seems like such a genuinely nice guy that I thought his sin was probably like, he accidentally, I don't know, his baseball bat flew out of his hands and then like broke a car window or hit someone on the back of the head. And he felt really bad and dropped the priesthood. That's what I thought.
And so what was it like when you got the rest of the script and you found out that, oh no, he beat a guy to within an inch of his life and it broke the seal of confession to...
Right. I read that and I was like, oh, I'm doing this right now. Okay. And I...
Had you recorded the other episodes before receiving the finished script?
Everything was done in basically like a day and a half. I think I had to come back a second day to record, but it was scary because I got the first part. I had the first part down, which actually we recorded that I think on a Friday, and I had to come back Saturday to record the last part and the very end. And it was very like emotional and like it was like his dark past, but it was like real, and it was actually really scary to try and do that like at all. That's actually the first time I've ever done any sort of that kind of content or material for any sort of medium.
Any sort of death?
Death as well. Yeah, I've never died before. So, hey, first death.
And so we talked a little bit about it at the end of the season, last season, with Frank Remiat's character dying and how like he is the experience of that. How did you find the act of acting, like voice acting, but dying at the same time? Like it's because there was a lot that was coming through in the voice. Mm-hmm. I can hear the blood coming up into your throat. Like I don't know if that's a thing that maybe Dave adds in post or whatever, but
it was
I feel like
Jolly Roger.
Yeah, exactly. I can hear like I can hear
a Jolly Rancher.
Yes, a Jolly Rancher.
So I'll be completely honest. When it made my inner child so happy
to die.
Ever since I was like, I can remember, I've always been like either whether it was playing by myself in the backyard, Dragon Ball Z or whatever, just by myself making noises and just boom, whatever.
Yeah.
Always when I was like being like, oh, and then now it's the tragic scene where I die, and you're like making all these gurgling sounds, and you're like, no, I don't want to die. And then there's always the moment when I was little when you would do the thing where you go. The final breath. But then, I wouldn't get it right when I was little, so I would do it again and again. So then, when I had to do it like on mic, I was like, well, it's just like how I did it back then, I guess, except I have some sort of weird puncture wound in my lung. So
yes. Okay.
Then I just kind of thought about all that and then just did things.
Well, I'm kind of bummed that you're not coming back. You're a delight.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we'll get a flashback or something, or again, a Force ghost will come back and
maybe
and save him. Let's go back a little bit to the episode and talk about him in what was called the pine diving suit. I love all of these like little slangy euphemism things. I'm like, the pine diving suit and all this stuff. So. You have Jenny and Abe, their spirits coming back to I mean, Abe is basically kicking him like, hey, like you're gonna die. Everyone's died around you. Has anyone ever lived? And I was really mad at that, and you guys were there. I was like, fuck you, Abe. Blah 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 blah. But I just wrote down. I'm like, oh, because Abe's in heaven. Like Abe is able to like guide people to the other side. And I'm like, I wouldn't go in whatever direction Abe was going to. No offense to Abe. Yeah, you're dead, but like you also weren't a nice guy. You were so. I thought that was just a really interesting choice. It was very like you could see it, the Foley work and all of that, the mixing and the editing on that was really, really great. Father Lozado's death scene, Sullivan and basically you get to a point where when Sullivan's about to die and Pete's just kind of hanging out there, he can't can't take his eyes away from the scene.
Mm-hmm.
You get a feeling that like, oh wow, like Rex must really be like, he must look just horrific, like how he is looking at Sullivan, because not even Pete, who's basically hit him over the head twice and tried to dumped that girl's body, who's already done all these horrific things, he wasn't even going to attack him too, just because of that.
I mean, he literally got out of Heph's car.
Yeah.
And went straight to the church. So it's like he was still covered in blood, bandaged up, covered in sand, with a random pistol that he got God knows where, because he knows he took his gun.
Yeah. I don't know. What did you think about that, Mike, with that whole particular scene?
I felt bad for poor Rexy. Yeah. He's like been pushed to the brink, and it was almost like, for me, and listening to it that one time, I mean, I'm one of those, I got to give it a couple listens to really sort of get into it. But just that one time, I just kept thinking about all that shit with Jenny, all the shit with the girl, all the shit that he just heard Abe dump on him, climbing out of a shallow grave in the desert, like
hallucinating
in pain, and realizing that he hallucinated. I was like, well,
trying to talk the father down, like, don't do this. And then watching him die, he's just, I'm kind of on your side, in that there's that part of me that thinks it's another sort of twist and that he didn't actually kill him, but at the same time, I'm just as evenly prepared to believe that in that moment he could and would and should.
End it exactly the way that we're led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
It's we just heard Abe describe all, here, all of these people have died on your watch, and then you get to the church, and then Father, like his another client dies on his watch again, like and it's just sitting with it now a little bit, because we for the listeners out there, we listen to it as a group, so the three of us plus Greg, our writer, we listen to the episodes as a group, and then we record it right after. We record this show right after listening to when the episode comes out, so it's gonna take me probably another good listen. I'll probably, if I have a long drive coming up, I'll probably listen to this entire case over again.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
There's just so much texture of it. It's starting from the very beginning, and especially like it's definitely a slow burn too. Like it's really, you get to some points where like, well, why is this being included? I'm a very much like Chekhov's gun. Like, why are you introducing this if we're not going to come back to this again?
But I also like that it wasn't rushed, and that time was taken, because the whole beginning of the second season is him being at a very, very low point where he's devastated. We meet him, he's drunk as fuck. He's just saying all this shit, and I think the tendency with wanting to keep the episodes short or to get the story moving along would be to just like, okay, and now everything's cool. But it was really nice to get to go on this ride and not have it rushed, and have his progression back into the Rex we know and love, and then all of a sudden like Rex 2.0. This new guy that we're still like, now we're like, who the hell is this now?
Even with the sidewalk scene where he's with the veterinarian, and it's just, he's like, what's your name again, who are you? And he did the same thing in the last episode, where he just keeps repeating his little intro, because that's just all he has to fall back on, because he's hit his head. And it's just, I feel like it really lets you as a listener sit in the frustration that Rex might be feeling, because he's like, I'm Rex. Jenny, who's your wife? Jenny. What? And get stuck in repeating the same things over and over again. You're just like, he's just stuck in this hole and he can't get out. He's stuck
in a loop of some sort. I mean, the whole episode kind of is a little bit of a micro of the last case of the last season, where now we're back. He's stuck in this loop of losing people. Like, I mean, maybe that's where the repeat comes from. I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting smirks from the peanut gallery, so probably might be onto something. But he's just stuck in this loop, and he just keeps going and going, and he's trapped in his circumstances, and which is I feel like it's a common theme. That's a common theme in noir. That's a common theme in literature, where people are stuck in their own roles, stuck in their places, and it's the whole struggle about how to escape from that or how to overcome those particular things. I think this is going to be one of those, like, inherently they are a good character, but it just seems to happen that they're surrounded by death, and it happens to be death of all these innocents. Which, again, this is noir, so it's
and some of those deaths come about from him trying to do the right thing. Trying to stay on the up and up, and trying to stay, head above water, not sinking to the levels of depravity and destruction that some of these other characters, and he's still just trying to do it right, and it all kind of blows up in his face.
And it still finds him. He's been drinking himself into oblivion for the last few months when we meet him in the first episode, or in the first episode of this case, and then all of a sudden, it still happens to find him that, because Angelo Martin's like, oh, my priest, you gotta go see this guy, and he's going back into his loop, and then people are still dying and losing. So it'll be I'll be really interested to see how we move forward from this, because it is it's definitely like, oh yeah, this is not, I thought we were gonna have like a gentle return to season 1 type deal. I guess that's not the case now. So we'll see what happens in the next case. I
mean, what was it? Margaret, when he was in the scene at the morgue, and she was very poignant, because they were tiptoeing around talking about Jenny, and she just said, "Well, I guess life goes on." And he's like, "What?" Yeah. He's like, "Well, like, she'd be happy that you're doing this again." And he was just like, it's just, again.
See, but that's why I think
moving forward.
But that's why I think that Jenny, we're talking about my conspiracy theory.
Oh no!
But that's why I think that Jenny is still alive, because she's like, oh, but you should just get over it. Like, why I can't get over it? Jenny is she was, as was described in a previous episode, Jenny is pure. Jenny represents this purity, this everything that Rex is not going to be because of everything that he's seen and done to get to this point. And Jenny represents a purity and the start of a new beginning, because she was basically the reason why he started Rivetter Investigations, and now she's gone, there's no reason to do it. But that's why I think, and also because of that, I remember thinking that, I'm like, no, see, because if she was really dead, I mean, like, again, habeas corpus, where's the body, okay? Like, where is the body?
She sent it back to Jersey.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I kid you not. Again, either like in a few months, I'm gonna either be completely vindicated and look like a genius, or I'm gonna look like an idiot.
I'm with you, Joe. I don't think she's dead either.
I don't think she's dead, because it's just let's put it this way, like, the sooner that he moves on with his life and sooner that he, 1, believes that she's dead, and 2, moves on with his life, it would make it easier for Jenny to do whatever mission she's doing for the government. At least that's my personal theory on it, because he wouldn't, and he's also not focusing on it. But I can guarantee you that in a future episode, somewhere, maybe at the end of this case, it's like he's gonna be somewhere, he's gonna look across the room, he's gonna see Jenny walking, and he's like, I see a woman that looks like Jenny, I feel like I'm hit, blah blah blah, and then and then it's gonna go to the end, and I'll be like, this is the second case, blah blah blah, and then the next, the case of the return of Jenny, like something like that. That's how it's gonna be. That's exactly how it's gonna play out.
Jenny is Agent Carter.
Yes, exactly. Jenny is Agent Carter. Jenny is some sort of like secret government. Again, and it's perfect for the time, because we have, like, this is the height of like Cold War spy, like 1950, like, even, and not even that, like undercover gangs, like all of that stuff can still work. Plus, she has a sordid history that we've never gone into, and she could definitely be like escaping some sort of mobster ex-husband and then have that be like the reason why she has to go back to him, so that way she protects Rex or something. Like, it's all there, guys. The signs are all there.
I feel like maybe
if you look for them.
If you look for them.
It might be more like
them.
Yes, like I'm John Nash here, okay? John Nash was actually a genius. It's just he also saw things that weren't there.
But I think it might be also kind of like, because you keep saying, oh, let's bring Heph back or something. And, I mean, he was just there for one episode. But then I'm like, well, it's like Meet Your Heroes.
Yeah.
Maybe if Heph comes back, turns out he's not the greatest guy ever, even though he decided to give Rex a ride or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this image of this great guy is kind of ruined. Maybe the reason we don't know Jenny's background is because it would be more painful if she really is dead. And he ends up in a case where he ends up finding out whatever she did before she was this really nice, great gal, Jenny.
So basically, you're talking like the plot of Deathly Hallows, the Dumbledore plot of Deathly Hallows.
I don't know. I get it.
We find out that Dumbledore's not exactly the best person ever.
And then, maybe she was just this terrible, terrible person.
Nice
committed
pull.
a big mistake.
I was
there
like,
you go.
I see what you're talking about. You're talking about some Grindelwald and Dumbledore bullshit.
Sure. It was not my intention to go there, but that's exactly what it is.
Can I just say
yes.
that I am glad that I'm the one who got to bust Rex's balls with his private dick joke?
Yes!
Yes! I see where you're going.
I get it.
No,
I loved that.
Because it's like, I love it because, too, like, it's from, like, a story and a character perspective, you're this anonymous trucker who picked up this guy who looks like shit on the side of the road has more propriety and essentially more propriety in class than like it's like I don't need to hear about that. I don't need to hear about your dick, son. Like I don't like
I get it.
I wouldn't want to be called that, but but this is also like, and that's I think what's cool about that character. So I always like to stir the pot a little bit, and I'm always encouraging our writer to bring back characters that people like. So again, if you really like Hephaestus, you want to see him back again. You want to see him maybe with Eugene in his cab, picks him up and takes him to if you want to see Eugene again, maybe it's like, I don't know, Mr. Rivetter. He said to take him over here, and just found him in the.
I like the professor. That's why I want to see again.
Yes, the professor comes back or some reason. Patreon. Go to the Patreon. Make a really big donation every month. Greg will pretty much do whatever it is that you want. He'll write you in, and then he'll write you in, and then Rex will eventually not be able to stop your untimely demise and further contribute.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, be careful of being written in on this season. You might just end up dying.
It's like getting a character in The Walking Dead.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. So
or Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I was like,
don't get attached. Welcome to Rex Rivetter. Don't get attached.
The last season where like the priest is there with the bat, I'm just like, I'm getting a lot of Walking Dead images. I'm getting a lot of like Preacher images. Robert Rodriguez is directing the scene in my head. Like I'm seeing all of these things mesh together. I could see like if this was the kind of show that went viral, you'd see like fan art of Father Lozado with like a bat dripping in blood. like that's what I see. So we're gonna wrap this up right now. But any closing thoughts on the episode, and then after that we'll do. I want you guys to plug, because you're local performers and local artists, so I want you to plug things that you're in or anything for our listeners to check out. Apparently. So, any final thoughts on the episode that you want to leave with or any predictions for the future?
Predictions? What? Well, I don't know.
Well, you're as of right now, you're not in anything, right? Or you can't even tell us that, probably.
For what?
For any future episodes, right?
For Rex Rivetter? As far as I know, I am not in anything.
Okay.
So,
same here.
Okay. As far as for until those big checks from Patreon come in, we don't know yet.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, again, Jenny and Abe came back, so you never know if maybe Rex goes a little more crazy, gets bumped on the back of the head some more.
Yeah.
And maybe there's just voices talking in his head. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe Eugene is the one that takes over for Father Lozado at the cathedral. You never know. Again, if you want to see Eugene come back, guys, you just make a big put a 1, add like 3 zeros out of he'll write.
We need to make Joe a Team Eugene shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag Team Eugene. Hashtag Eugene for Rex. Get those trending.
Eugene Rex 1952.
Exactly. Okay. So, final any plugs that you want to plug for the future? This episode will be coming out the 6th of March. It is the 6th of March, and will be coming out. Is there anything that you'd like to plug for the future, or any pop culture recommendations that you have for our listeners that like Rex Rivetter?
My Favorite Murder.
Yes, absolutely.
Podcast is fantastic, but really, I just want to say that I'm a big fan of Rex Rivetter. I wasn't even a reluctant fan. I jumped in thinking this is something my friends are doing, and I wanted to support friends, and I ended up becoming a legitimate fan of the series. I love the style. The writing and the performances have only gotten better and better and better, and so I'm really, not only am I excited to have gotten to be a part of it, I'm just really excited to see where it's going. So, yeah.
Likewise, me too. The first time I ever heard Rex Rivetter was Randy Cool played, I was in a show with him, and he played like a little snippet of a minute, which was a preview for the very first episode, very first season. And I heard like 30 seconds of it. I was like, I don't care when or what.
Yeah.
I want to go audition.
Yeah.
And so, here I am. But for plugs, on March 13th, Monday night, I got involved with Amigos del Rep. We're doing a stage reading, which is completely free, down over at the Lyceum Theater in Horton Plaza. It's called Native Gardens. It's going to be real good, real amazing. So if you guys happen to want to have a fun on a Monday night, come down.
Yes,
down.
And this is the same production that Dave plugged in the episode itself when in our little commercial in the middle there.
That's correct.
So this is happening next week. So we're not saying you have to listen to next week's episode live, but definitely go to the Amigos del Rep. And if you're here in the San Diego area, go to the Amigos del Rep. Go see some awesome free theater, and then come back and listen to Rex on your ride home.
Right? Or listen to it during the day after it's posted, Yeah,
the next day
and
too.
then come to whatever happens, because you never want to miss Rex. Oh my God.
Awesome. And that's a really good place to end it. So thank you once again for coming to listening to our show here, Rivetting Conversations. My name is Joe. You can find me at my own podcast, Fright School, where my friend Joshua forces me to watch horror movies against my will. And I'm getting Stockholm Syndrome because I'm starting to really, really enjoy watching more of these horror films. That's Fright School, available where you get your podcasts, where you find Rex Rivetter. Don't forget to come to back to Downstairs Entertainment next week when we start off Case 2 of Season 2.
Oof.
And remember, Patreon, it's there, Rex Rivetter Private Eye on Patreon. We have some generous patrons. We have really good benefits coming really soon. So please donate there as much as you can. Maybe earmark some for Eugene to return. I don't know. Greg was the first one to laugh at that when I said it. So, if you want to shut Greg up, just keep donating to Patreon and say this is for Eugene. # Rex, Eugene for Rex. All right. You've been listening to Rivetting Conversations. Thank you so much to my guests, James McCullock, and to Edgar Diaz-Gutierrez. We will see you all in the second case of Season 2 in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. That's the sleep. And we're done!
Dang.